All right, good afternoon. Sorry for the delay, but as you saw, the Syrian Security Council meeting on Syria is still ongoing. A bit earlier today, the Secretary General briefed the Council on a week that marks the end of 7 years of conflict there. He highlighted a stark fact in this grimmest of anniversaries. In 2017, more children were killed in Syria than during any other year since the war began. The Secretary General told the Council that despite the passage of Resolution 2401, there has been no cessation of hostilities. Violence continues in eastern Ghouta and beyond, including in Afrin, parts of Idlib, and into Damascus and its suburbs. And humanitarian aid continues to face blockages, with the humanitarian and human rights situations becoming more desperate by the day. On Thursday, the Secretary General said this conflict will enter its 8th year, but he refuses to lose hope to see Syria rising from the ashes. And this morning, in the General Assembly Hall, the Secretary General spoke at the opening of the 62nd session of the Commission on the Status of Women. He praised women across the world who are telling their stories and provoking important and necessary conversations. In villages and cities, in boardrooms and bedrooms, in the streets and in the corridors of power, women and girls are calling out abusive behavior and discriminatory attitudes, the Secretary General said. He stressed that centuries of patriarchy and discrimination have left a damaging legacy. He added that changing the unequal power dynamics that underpin discrimination and violence is not only the greatest human rights challenge of our time, but it is also in everyone's interest. Discrimination against women damages communities, organizations, companies, economies, and societies, he said, which is why all men should support women's rights and gender equality. Calling himself a proud feminist, the Secretary General said that when women are already taking action, it is crucial to listen to them and support them. His full remarks are online, and the Deputy Secretary General will also deliver remarks later today in the ministerial segment of the Commission of the CSW. Under the Spotlight, Ending Violence Against All Women and Girls is the name of the session, and that'll be at 2:55 in the ECOSOC chamber. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., there will be a press briefing here sponsored by the Permanent Mission of Ireland to the United Nations on Arab women's experiences in connection with the ongoing session of the Commission on the Status of Women. And there are a number of other events, and I encourage you to look on the web to see all of those. The acting special coordinator for Lebanon, Pernille Cardell, met today with President Michel Aoun. She emphasized that the conference later this week in Rome will be an opportunity for Lebanon and the Lebanese government to state its desire to see the security institutions extend state authority throughout the country. She congratulated the Lebanese government and its preparations ahead of the May 6th elections, saying that it is encouraging to see a historic number of female candidates for these elections. There's more in a press release from her office. And Jan Kubish, the special representative of the Secretary General for Iraq, today stressed the need for the Iraqi government to take active steps to support and protect minority communities and to ensure the return of minorities who suffered from Daesh persecution in their homes. He urged all the religious, political, and civic leaders, as well as the general public, to stand up for their fellow vulnerable citizens. Mr. Kubish called for the support and protection of minorities, including Yazidi, Christian, Shabak, Sabaean, Mandarins, and others. He said Iraq needs all its components, all of its ethnic and religious groups, to rebuild in the post-Daesh period and to prosper in the future of a stable and united country. And the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Jeff Feltman, concluded a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka yesterday. Mr. Feltman met with President Sirisena as well as other political and government leaders. He commended the Parliament's recent adoption of the Bill for Protection Against Enforced Disappearances. Regarding the recent communal violence, Mr. Feltman condemned the breakdown in law and order and attacks against Muslims and their properties. And the note correspondent was shared with you over the weekend. Turning to Afghanistan, the Director of Operations and Advocacy For the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, John Ging just concluded a 3-day visit to Afghanistan, where he visited families displaced by conflict in informal settlements and families which recently returned from Pakistan after years of living there. He also met with the UN, humanitarian NGOs, as well as humanitarian donor group partners, as well as the chief executive of Afghanistan, Dr. Abdullah. Mr. Ging stressed the challenges of reaching 2.8 million Afghans who gave acute needs in 2018. Who have acute needs in 2018. He said the humanitarian assistance continues to be a priority to ensure the survival of the most vulnerable, adding that we should not abandon the people of Afghanistan. And in the Central African Republic, our peacekeeping colleagues tell us that for the first training of 500 national police and gendarmes started today in Bangui. This is the first training of its kind, and the UN mission in the Central African Republic supported the recruitment process, the rehabilitation of the police academy, and the preparation of the training. This is the culmination of a process that lasted over a year to recruit candidates from all 16 prefectures in the Central African Republic so as to reconstitute the national police and gendarmerie into a national security force that is representative of the entire country. And our colleagues from the UN Environment Program today announced the winners of the Clean Seas Innovation Competition. The competition was held among university students and recognized creative ideas for tackling marine litter. The winners include a group of students who designed biodegradable plastic cups and plates made out of egg whites and a recycling scheme in Cameroon that turns plastic bottles into fishing canoes, and a project that uses remote sensing to detect marine litter along the coast of Chile. More information online. And lastly, we thank our friends in Slovakia and we thank the President of the General Assembly, no doubt, as they become the latest member state to pay their membership fee in full for the regular budget, which brings us up to, well, since you're the only one who played, you get a question. It's actually 66. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Stéphane. I ask you first about Omar Kiswani, the chief of the Palestinian Union at Birzeit University, who was snatched from the university campus. If you have any update on that.
I do not, unfortunately.
Could you please?
I will try.
Okay. The second, there is a new law passed by the Knesset authorizing the Interior Minister to confiscate any blue identity of the people of Jerusalem, of course, the Arab population of Jerusalem. This is a very alarming, and there is a statement saying that's a beginning of a total ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from East Jerusalem. Also, do you have any information on that?
No, let me take a look at that, see where that is.
Thank you.
Okay. Masuji.
Thank you, Stéphane. On the situation in Yemen, there are reports, ongoing reports, again and again, that the civilians are dying, children are dying over there, and that the Saudi coalition has not let up or to allow aid to come in. Well, what is the update on that? What is the situation over there?
The situation in Yemen continues to be dire for the people of Yemen, for the civilians. The fighting is continuing. Some aid is going in, some through some of the ports, and there's been improvement on that. But we're not nearly seeing the level of humanitarian aid that we would like to see go into the country. Not only is there not enough aid, there are continuing attacks on civilian infrastructure. There's the medical and health sector in Yemen continues to suffer tremendously. All this should be a constant reminder to the parties to regroup and push forward on a political agreement. We hope that the arrival of a new envoy will help spur that. We hope the arrival of a new envoy will help spur momentum towards a political agreement.
So also, like to know about Kahuta, there's a report now that the Russians saved about 72 civilians from Kahuta, but as situation still is very, very fluid, and people are dying.
Masood, with due respect, I would encourage you to read or watch the Secretary General's extensive report on the situation in Syria, notably in eastern Ghouta, and I think all will agree he paints a pretty bleak picture of the situation. Mr. Lee.
Sure. Other stuff, but I guess on Yemen, I just wanted to ask you. I've seen some reports that Lise Grandy has been named the humanitarian coordinator there. It may, you're always saying don't. I don't know if I missed it, but was this announced here?
I didn't announce it, so I don't have an update for you. We'll check, but I've not announced it.
Seems like she's already meeting with the parties. Or...
As always, you're better informed than I am, if that is in fact the case, Mr.
Okay.
Lee.
I also will, in the interest of being better informed, I wanted to ask about this meeting on the Secretary General's schedule with H.R. McMaster. It's not in the media alert. Is there any? It seems like it's a pretty high-profile meeting. Many people are interested in it. Can it be opened for a photo op? Is there a photo op? And will there be a readout?
There'll be a UN photo. I don't expect to be a readout. It's a meeting that's being done at the request of Mr. McMaster, who asked to see the Secretary General.
And it's up on 38?
It is up on the 38th floor.
Okay.
If the media arrangements change, you will be advised.
All right.
Good. Master G.
Thank you. Stéphane, I've been asking this question again and again. The latest report is that there are still 200 children incarcerated by Israel, Palestinian children incarcerated by Israel. Now, what is the situation? Has anybody in the United Nations had a talk with the Israeli authorities about their children? I mean, they're not.
I think we've given you an update on the numbers. The incarceration of minors throughout the world is an area that's of concern to us, and it's important that minors be treated with full respect of the rights that is owed to them. Let's continue this tennis match, Mr.
Okay,
Lee,
definitely. I've been for a couple times been asking for an update on Mr. Horst Kohler's work on Western Sahara, and I did want to ask if having not gotten one, a specific question, which is that I think this Trans-Montana Forum is kicking off. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth on it, and as you may know, the African Union specifically called in one of its resolutions for it not to be held in this disputed territory and for countries not to go. And I'm wondering if we can't get an update, can we get Mr. Hans Kohler's view on this forum being held at this time and this place?
Mr. Kohler, as you know, has been meeting with the parties. He met, I think his last round of meetings was in Lisbon, where he met with the representatives of Morocco. As for the holding of this event, we have no particular comment, and I'm not aware of any UN participation in it.
Okay, there's been. I'll go back and look at previous back. There's.
I know what happened previously.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm sure you do. The South Sudan radio. You'd said on Friday that it hadn't yet been closed and that hope sprung eternal. Has it now been closed?
No, my understanding is that it's still on the air. I've not received information that it is.
Okay, well that would be good news. I wanted to ask you that the staff in Geneva have scheduled in writing a vote on a strike on this ongoing trying to get the. I guess I don't want to say what they're trying to do, but it's all in there. And so they say, or I've heard, they've told me that there's some mulling of retaliation if people vote for a strike or go on strike by Jan Beagle of Department of Management. So I just wanted to ask you in advance, not to hinder the vote, of course. This is all being done in a kind of the way a union does things. They're having a vote in various places on Thursday. But what can you say about the Secretary General's respect for the right to collective bargaining?
As a matter of principle, we have a respect for unions. People should be able to feel free to vote the way they want to vote. I can assure you that there is no retaliation planned of any kind. The issue of collective bargaining is a principle itself. It doesn't really apply to. The UN pay structure is done, as you know, through a different way, through the International Civil Service Commission.
I guess their idea is if people vote for a strike and as a last resort. The last time there was a work stoppage and there was a message from Michael Moeller saying that they could be administrative penalties for actually having work. So that's what I mean. It's like, obviously people can organize, but if they organize to actually take collective action.
There are rules in place, and those rules need to be respected. Abdelhamid.
Yes, I have noticed in the speech of the Secretary General to the GA regarding women, he did not mention directly or indirectly about the oppression of colonial period of developing nations' women, colonialism, slavery, enslavement, apartheid, and occupation. Yes, of course, there is oppression of women by the by the society and by the historic patriarchal society, but also colonialism, occupation, foreign domination, also a major reason for oppressing women. Why his speech
listen,
did not
I will
include
leave.
that part.
I will leave the analysis to you, Abdelhamid. There's always, I think, people could always want this. Wait for the Secretary General to say more. His speech was very clear. It's very direct. It's an assessment of what is going on today. It's forward looking. His message is that the issue of patriarchy, of oppression of women, is one that transcends cultures, it transcends religions, transcends ethnic groups, and transcends history, unfortunately. Masood.
I agree, but there are women who
you know, as I
double
said, they
oppressed.
could always, any speech that the Secretary General delivers in any forum could always be 2 or 3 or 4 times as long. I'm explaining to you the framework of the Secretary General's thinking. Masood.
Yes, on this situation in Afghanistan that you just spoke about, in Pakistan there are calls by the civilian government and many government officials and so forth that it's time for Pakistan to repatriate some 5 million Afghan refugees languishing in Pakistan for a very long time. Since,
Masood, with respect, what is the question?
So, and the Afghan government and relations between Pakistan and Afghan are not.
No, I'm aware of the situation. I'm just asking you for the question.
Yeah, the question is simply this: now, what is the situation if the repatriation takes place? Now, is it going to be forced repatriation?
No repatriation of refugees should ever be forced. Repatriation should be done on a voluntary basis, in a dignified basis, wherever it applies. Mr. Lee, and then we'll go to Mr. Varma.
Okay, sure. I wanted to one thing is on the readout of Jeffrey Feltman's visit to Sri Lanka. I just wanted to ask. The government there has taken the decision to suspend access to a number of major social media platforms in the name of trying to quell communal violence. But people, it's one of these open questions of whether that's the way to do it. Did Mr. Feltman, did he observe that while he was there, and what's the UN's view on a government banning all access to WhatsApp?
I'm not aware if he observed it as a matter of principles. We as a matter of principle, and I'm not aware of the specific details in Sri Lanka. We do support free access to the internet.
And part of asking is because there's a protest, or at least announced for here at the UN on Wednesday of Sri Lankan Muslims, basically saying the UN has not done enough. So does Mr. Feltman believe that the government has dealt with this problem appropriately?
The issue was raised in the talks with Mr. Feltman, and I think it's reflected in the readout.
And is Amina Mohammed going to London for the Commonwealth? I've seen some online reports that she's a speaker there, but I haven't seen anything announced from here.
I'm not aware, but that doesn't mean it's not a fact. So we will come back to one way or another. Thank you. And Mr. Varma, you're up.